think as a child or as a kid, more like when I was growing up, I grew up in a very small town in Bavaria. So it wasn't really about photography, it wasn't about photojournalism or anything. I was bored out of my mind and I wanted to get out of there. So I couldn't really come up with anything else. So I think maybe photojournalism or war photography, something like this was so much the other extreme of how I was, because I think I was very fearful and I was a very fearful child, but I was very, very bored and I wanted to do something, I wanted to get out of there. So somehow it was a combination, so I put it into my head, I want to become a photojournalist. So, yeah. It came out of this absolute opposite of what I grew up in. So I grew up in Western Germany at the end of the Cold War in the 80s. It was totally peaceful, it was stability, it was a world, some small, quiet town. And so, of course, but there was always war. War was in the air. We were afraid of there might be a third world war, or there might be this, or there might be that. And then there was, in the history of my family, my father's side, there were refugees from Czechoslovakia. My mother's side, her father had died, so my grandfather on my mother's side had died. So there was a shadow of war in my family. So I think looking for war, which was the driving force of my photography at the beginning, I really wanted to go to war. That's what it was about. It wasn't about photography. I mean, chronologically, when I was like 18, 19, I moved to Moscow, and as I said, I wanted to be a photographer. I was interested in wars. So I went to Moscow, but in Moscow I felt very excluded, and I felt I was late. In a way, I felt I wasn't experienced enough. It was already an established place, Moscow. And people knew a lot about it. A lot of things had already been photographed. So I started going to the Caucasus, and I had no idea about the Caucasus. I didn't know anything about Chechnya, Georgia, Karabakh. Like, I knew there was wars, and I was interested, so I went. And when I came to the Caucasus, I felt I was doing something different, not everybody was doing. And I felt also that I got along with the people there. I felt accepted, and I felt I had my place. Especially in Tbilisi. So I mean, literally, I came to Tbilisi for a few weeks, and I stayed for a few years. I really fell in love with Georgia. Like, it was this incredible hospitality, and also there was this despite. I mean, Georgia in the 90s was really not funny. It was really a difficult place. There was criminality. There was a civil war. There was no electricity. There was all kinds of this. But the strength of the people, and in a way, it was sort of this intensity of life. I think there was like the way like Georgian tomatoes are more tasteful. The same way life is more in the good and in the bad. It's not just everything good. But I think my job is an incredible privilege. I think after all, probably curiosity is one of the driving forces I have. I'm just really curious. I want to see what it's like. I want to smell. I want to do it. So of course I pack all of this into some sort of professional photography. Of course afterwards there's also a responsibility. I think I have a very big responsibility to try to be honest and to try to be correct and not to do something that makes sense in a way and stand up for my opinions in a way that I think that I have to be clear about that. So, well, it's an advantage to be Magnum because it's an agency that takes a lot of care of its photographers. So we're very privileged to have a lot of very talented staff who work with us and for us basically. Look, when I got into Magnum, I was 27, 28 years old. I was totally overwhelmed because I thought it's something for like famous old people. I wasn't famous, I wasn't old, I was young. Suddenly stumbling into this, it was a very strong experience and it was very scary in a way. I was worried, I was confused about what I had to do, who was I, what I had to, how do you have to behave. I was incredibly happy and I felt I had an incredible chance. But on a day-to-day thing, it wasn't a very nice time in my life. I didn't enjoy this pressure. Then also we have these 4 years where you have to prove yourself and everything. But the idea was a very basic and simple one. It's 70 years, this is the 70th anniversary of Magnum, my agency, which was founded by Kappa, among the others. Kappa was one of the founders. And it's 70 years of the Russian Journal. So 70 years ago, one of the first things Kappa did after he founded Magnum was actually he went on this trip with Steinbeck. So there's this very simple historic link. So, but it's also a good pretext to look at our history, look at what we did. I have a very simple assignment, or I had a very simple offer. It was like you go back and you figure out, you do something to bring back, do something contemporary about the Russian Journal. So when I started, I didn't really know yet. I think I went about it in a very innocent way, which I think is good because I've been here a lot, so I'm not very fresh. But I had to come up with something. What am I going to do these 6 weeks now where we're in Russia and Ukraine and here? And so I came up with this, as I said before, this idea of a little bit recreating the fakeness of their trip at the time, that they were invited, they were taken care of by the Soviet system, by the Soviet hospitality. And then, and now I've been playing along these lines. And a lot of, it's a collaboration with Julius, but Julius is a writer, so he has maybe a more journalistic angle about it. Also, he has less history with the place. So there's but I think we bounce off each other in a very good way.